When you hear of water rationing, you may think of places facing a water crisis like Puerto Rico. But right here in Maryland, some people have chosen to ration their water because of insurmountable water bills. Our news partner, The Banner, is hearing from residents in Allegheny County in western Maryland who are taking some extreme water rationing measures, including showering once a week. That's because some people are paying $400, $700, even $1,000 a month for their water bills. Let's bring in Adam Willis from The Banner, who joins us live. You filed this report. Adam, thanks for joining us tonight.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So those water bills sound insane. Tell us what's happening in the mountains of Maryland, where we know water is plentiful. There's also the issue here that the water system is owned by a private company, and that's not too common.
Right. So I think you put it really well and summarized the issue. But this is a part of the country, we're not talking about Phoenix, Arizona, or someplace where water is extremely scarce. There's plenty of water. The resource itself is not the issue in western Maryland. But this is a very small community south of Cumberland in far western Maryland. It basically borders West Virginia. We're only talking about 2,000 or so people here, very rural, very small community that for a long time now has been served, like you said, by a privately owned water utility. And in the last couple of years here, they've seen their rates increase precipitously over a couple of years to the point where people are paying routinely hundreds of dollars a month. And a lot of members of this community are taking some fairly extreme measures to respond to that. So you have people who, showering once a week or once every 3 days is commonplace from the people that I spoke with. There's a family I interviewed that carries water in buckets from the creek to run their toilets off of. There's folks who are trying to move out of the community, people who have decided that giving their kids bottled water is cheaper than running the tap. So things have gotten quite extreme there. And like you said, yes, all under a privately owned utility in these last couple of years.
Yeah, and we know we've been talking about affordability in this country, the cost of everything, groceries, other bills, I'm sure they have. How long have they been self-rationing their water, and do they see how much longer they can manage this issue?
This isn't a situation I think that's going to resolve itself quickly, but one of the reasons that it came onto my radar in the first place is that Allegheny County took the fairly serious step in May to enact eminent domain to try to take over this utility system and basically seize it, bring it under government control. That's going to be a long process, but they've already been dealing with this issue for a couple of years. So the utility first requested this increase, or I should say a series of increases in September of 2021. And all of these increases, the bulk of the prices that people in this community pay have been approved by Maryland regulators on the Maryland Public Service Commission. So they've seen their rates kind of steadily climb over the course of 3 to 4 years here. And how long it will take for the county to take over the system, and whether a government-owned system will be able to bring the cost down for this community are sort of open questions still.
So how do they justify these increased costs, and also the company who owns it, American Water? How do they defend these high costs for water bills?
Yeah, it's a confusing situation, both to report on and for the community members here, because this system has basically been, and this community really has been shuffled between different private owners for years now. There was a company called Corix that became Nexus, which was based in Texas, that owned the system and actually requested all of these rate increases over the last couple of years. But a company called American Water actually just acquired the system only in June. They didn't finalize that deal until, I believe, June 1st. American Water happens to be the largest owner of private water systems in the country. They are saying that they're working with the state to try to provide low-cost payment plans or discounts for low-income customers, and looking at other measures that might help to lower the rates or smooth out the rates across their systems in Maryland. But all of this is going to be a complicated process, and the utility that owned, or I should say the company that owned the system before American Water, had basically said they're losing money on the system, that they're sinking so much money into trying to maintain the system, into replacing pipes and things like that, that they had to jack up rates in order to keep the system going.
Wow. Meanwhile, all the people in Allegheny County paying exorbitant fees. Adam Willis, thanks so much for joining us with your insight into this eye-opening report.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.